Welcome back to the 1-0 pod. I'm Seth Engle.
I'm Zach Allen.
And yeah, we got a lot, not too much to discuss today, but there is some big news early this morning. Jaelyne Matthews, a four-star offensive tackle from the class of 2025. He announced his commitment to Penn State today. So that means he's a sophomore committing already to Penn State. I know we've seen that before from people like Cooper Cousins, and even Mega Barnwell did it as well. It's kind of crazy when you think about, oh, this kid is just maybe 16 years old, committing to college already, but he's extremely developed for his age. I mean, this guy's 6'7", 290 pounds. Zach, from what you've seen so far from Matthews, what do you think Penn State's getting here?
Well, I was going to bring up his, frame first and foremost, because I don't 24/7 Sports, he's listed at 6'5", but his Twitter bio he's listed at 6'7", so he's still obviously growing. And since he's a sophomore, he's only like 15 or 16 years old and probably still hasn't filled into his frame. And I know heading into this past season, the depth at offensive line was kind of a concern. I remember the coaches telling us, they were running double reps at times because they just didn't have enough players. So I think, the offensive line especially has been really a concerted effort in the recruiting standpoint. And Jaelyne Matthews is like 2 years down the line. They have number one player in the state of New Jersey already locked up as of right now. A lot could change, but if everything stays the same, he'll just add to another piece of, an offensive line recruit that Penn State has been bringing in recently in like every class.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned New Jersey too. You said he was the number one player in New Jersey for 2025. That's true. He's also the number 5 offensive tackle in the country, and then the number 60 overall player. But I want to go back to the fact of where he's from, because you'd think New Jersey, oh, it's this place in the Northeast, borders Pennsylvania. Penn State should be recruiting really well there, right? Well, they're not. They actually haven't brought in a signee from New Jersey since Amin Vanover in 2020. I mean, we look at these past 2 classes, which have been top 15, like classes with Nick Singleton and Drew Aller and Abdul Carter and these star-studded names. There wasn't a single player from New Jersey in there. I think it says a lot about where Penn State is going, the fact that they're able to now recruit back in New Jersey again, which is a state you'd expect them to recruit well in, but maybe haven't in the past few years. A name I want to bring up, because I really do think this says a lot about Phil Troutwine and pretty much where the offensive line is going as a whole. But I want to bring up the name Khalil Ahmad, who probably isn't getting discussed too much, but he's someone that just joined the staff last week from Syracuse. He was Syracuse's director of high school relations. Now he's on Penn State's recruiting and personnel team. This is a guy that recruits extremely well in the state of New Jersey. And with Jaelyne Matthews, he had only taken visits to 2 different schools. Can you guess where those schools are? It's Penn State and Syracuse. So you bring over Ahmad, and within a week, they're already bringing in this high-profile New Jersey athlete. So I think it says a lot about the direction of the staff and how big the recruiting team is getting.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think New Jersey would kind of be a hotspot because there's not like a huge state school there either. Penn State's recruited very well in the DMV with, schools like Maryland, Virginia Tech, and these big Power 5 football programs. And respect to Rutgers, but I think Rutgers is like the best college football program in the state of New Jersey. And you'd think in the past, since it borders Pennsylvania, that it would be kind of just a hot spot that they really just sweep up everyone that comes out of there for the most part. But that hasn't been the case, but maybe it's on its way to changing now. It already has started.
Yeah, for sure. And then also staying in state too, I think is important, and really owning the state of Pennsylvania should be the main priority. Anthony Specca, who we didn't get to talk about in the last pod because there was so much going on with Taylor Stubblefield getting fired, and then they got Dante Cephas later that day. I mean, Anthony Specca is a guy from Pittsburgh. He's one of the top, players in Pennsylvania for the 2024 class. He's also the number 2 commitment of that class. I think he brings a lot to the table as well. I think Penn State's starting to build their base locally, and then we'll see them start to branch out more and more, move further south, just like they did with the previous 2 classes. But I mean, the past week was an extremely important week for recruiting. Right now there's not too much going on. There's optional practices and whatnot, but for the most part, these weekends are used for recruiting weekends. I mean, they have these high school athletes from the 2024 and 2025 classes coming up, working out, meeting the coaches, seeing the facilities. There's some big names here, man. I mean, I don't know if you saw the list yet, but there's some big guys there, like Michael Van Buren's a name I think a lot of people are excited about, who's a 4-star quarterback for 2024. So it's interesting when you start to see, like, okay, where's this program starting to look post Drew Aller before this guy's even, taking a snap as a starter.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the last week was also a big recruiting event because of the other sports that were going on. Hockey played. They've really taken the whole campus by storm this year. And obviously wrestling's there too. Two Bryce Jordan Center duels in the matter of a week. And you have to think James Franklin went to both of them. And that was probably, one of the talking points he had with the recruits, just showing them how the fans love all the other sports and just the campus in general.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because that was something I was thinking about when you have a packed Bryce Jordan Center. If I'm a football coach and I'm trying to say, okay, well, we have this great football culture. Unfortunately, you can't see it right now. Let's show you what else Penn State brings to the table. I am 100% bringing you to a Penn State Iowa wrestling match. I mean, Micah Parsons is there. Abdul Carter's there. The Rose Bowl team gets honored, halfway through there as well. I mean, that's exactly where I'm going to go. And I'd be wowed if I were a recruit. I wonder if any of these guys did end up going to the wrestling meet or to a hockey match. I know you do wrestling. I don't know if you saw anyone there, but that would be something interesting to note.
Yeah, I personally couldn't point out anyone from my position. Press row's kind of up there, so it's hard to distinguish people on the floor a little bit. But also just to bring up the fan base again, because when the Rose Bowl team got honored, it was like someone got pinned in there. They were cheering as loud as anyone. Same for, like, I think field hockey was honored at the Michigan one a couple weeks ago, and the fans are still cheering for them too. So I think it just shows Penn State's culture of athletics as a whole.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point. I think as the months go along, we'll start to see more commitments come in. I know there's some people out there who are a little worried the fact that Penn State only has 2 commitments right now for 24. And it's kind of weird. They already got their 25. But that kind of stuff moves around. Like we saw Mega Barnwell. He committed at one point when he was really young. I think he was 15 actually when he committed originally. Ended up decommitting because he was young. He wanted to, see his other options. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens with Jaelyne Matthews. I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but he's young. I mean, there's a long way to go on that recruiting process. It shouldn't be over by any means. I don't think you can just cut your recruitment after you take 2 visits to a school. I don't know. That just wouldn't be the smartest thing, but it sounds like he had a good weekend there. And I know he was joined by a lot of other guys like Cooper Cousins. So maybe we'll start to see some more commitments in the near future.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, they're still young. You have to think, like, an offer from Penn State sounds amazing, and it is an amazing offer. But when they're still young, I think it kind of just naturally starts to set in, like, oh, I kind of still want to visit Clemson, for example, or like Ohio State. And so then they do it, and then they're kind of so ingrained in the Penn State culture already. Most of the time, maybe they come back. But I'm very interested to see what happens with Jaelyne Matthews in the future.
Yeah. I mean, James Franklin made a interesting remark during Big Ten Media Days this past summer. Someone asked him about recruiting in the age of NIL. How do you recruit when they're getting offers of like sums of money from other schools? How do you gauge the legitimacy of a commitment right now? And his answer was, well, this is what I've always done is I try to tell kids not to commit. You know what I mean? Like he will literally tell kids like, are you sure you want to come here? Just to kind of gauge like, okay, like I know 100% I want to go to Penn State, that kind of thing. I I don't even know what a conversation looks like when you're talking with a 16-year-old recruit who's like, I'm coming. But I mean, there's probably some of that dialogue in there and yeah, we'll kind of see where it goes with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's about it for us. Just wanted to discuss the commitment there. Yeah, so you can follow all our stuff on Collegian foot on PSU Foot Blog on Twitter and collegian.psu.edu. Peace out.